Greetings, fellow Siegers. Heroes Siege Season 7 is officially set to launch on June 6th, bringing with it a wave of exciting new content. A brand new seasonal feature, powerful in-game bosses, an all-new class, reworked and newly added items, expanded blood pack support, hundreds of balance changes across all classes, and massive performance, anti-cheat, and server stability upgrades. And that's just the beginning. Be sure you mark your calendars, this season is shaping up to be a fun one. In today's video, I'll be walking you through a complete build guide. We'll cover everything that you need to know from pros and cons, leveling strategies, skill and sub-skill tree progression, attribute allocation, gearing recommendations for budget, mid-game, and end-game setups. I'll also break down optimal mercenary pairings, loot filter tips, and some helpful resources I've created to support you guys on your journey through the season. A full written version of this guide will be available on my website shortly after the video goes live, and as always, timestamps will be available for your convenience. If you're new here, I'm Graxy. I create ARPG-focused content with a strong emphasis on Hero Siege. My channel features build guides, game mechanic breakdowns, how-to tutorials, and content for both new and experienced players. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to stay up to date with the latest Hero Siege news and guides. Your support, whether through a like, comment, or small donation, help keeps the channel going strong. Let's dive into it. This guide was created during the closed beta phase of Season 7 and is based on the content and mechanics available at that time. Please note that certain features, balance changes, or other game elements may be updated or modified as the game progresses towards its official release. The information presented here may not fully reflect the final version of the game, and some aspects could be subject to change. While I strive to provide accurate and effective build recommendations, future adjustments by the developers may impact the viability of certain strategies. Always refer to the official patch notes for the latest insights and information.
Me yell real loud. Me make big circle. You die.
Okay, let's look at some pros and cons for the Viking. You are a pretty thick boy. You get a ton of defense through passives like built-in defense rating, all resistance, combat orders for life and mana, as well as movement speed. It's also just a very easy playstyle. All you do is just cast a big circle around you and it destroys everything. It's very limited screen clutter. You can actually turn off this skill pretty much completely and you won't see anything besides things dying around you at a circle. However, it does not have the best single target, right? It's going to lack single target viability in the end game. And even in large amounts of investment, like you're going to be able to kill bosses and stuff with it, but you, with such a large investment, it's not as crazy as some of the other characters in the game, as well as you're going to need to fix your mana sustain, right? Because you are casting a lot, so there's going to need to be a way for you to sustain your mana. Now, it does have life stacking to damage conversion, but you do get kind of punished for going too life stack. You will get some damage for having a lot of life, but you're not going to be dumping super into life stack. I did test just going pure life stack version of it, and it ended up being way less damage than going like an actual build and then just getting some extra damage because you have a lot of life on a Viking to begin with. As well as you will need to turn off your game sound, or otherwise you're just going to be hearing a lot of for hours and hours, and trust me, you don't want to do that, my D2 boys. Now, let's look at some skill trees. Starting at level 1, we do not gain access to Odin's Fury until level 24, right? So we're going to have to level as a different skill until then. I recommend that you go Charge. There are some other options. Charge is probably going to be it because it is an arcane related skill. It's an arcane caster skill. I'll be honest with you, not the most fun leveling, right? It's going to feel a little bit clunky. I would not recommend this for hardcore as you are literally charging into enemies at level 1, and it doesn't really start to feel good until you hit level 8. And even then, it's a little bit sus because you're charging into enemies. So your first 7 levels, you're going to dump everything into charge. At level 8, you're going to respec, dump 1 point into charge. The rest will go into this passive here. This is going to make it so that whenever you hit an enemy with charge, it will create an AoE circle around that will allow you to have splash damage, right? So it's going to be an easy way to clear mobs out. At level 16, we're going to switch this up a little bit. We're going to put a bit more points into charge just to get more base damage, and then obviously split the rest of it into the AoE node. At level 24, we can finally play the build. We're going to respec, dump everything that we can into Odin's Fury, and then from there, we'll put a few of our points in Defensive Shout. Once we hit level 30, we do have access to combat orders, right? So at level 30, we do want to start dumping points into combat orders. Here's what our level 40 will look like. I would recommend that you respec again after you've hit around level 40, just so that you can take all your points out of Defensive Shout and put them into combat orders, because obviously more life is still a more damage option for us. There is still the life stacking built into this, and it really does help in these early levels. And then you're just going to put 1 point of the synergies like Stone Skin, Norse resistance is nice. It's just an all res passive, and battle agility is really nice. Gives you some movement speed. You could also dump all of your points into battle agility, right? And then the Odin tree, there is an option where you can get some movement speed whenever you use Odin's Fury. So this can be a really cool way that you can just speed through zones really quickly. You can put this on a second setup, a second skill tree setup, and you can just swap between the two. So you'll use the second one to get a ton of movement speed to run between the zones. And then when you actually need to do damage, you'll do that swap on like boss kills or whatever you may need to do. This is also when you get your first augment. So this is going to make Odin's Fury feel a lot better because you are going to get more casts per click. At level 70, we should continue putting points into our synergies. Make sure that your combat orders is maxed out, Odin's Fury is maxed out, defensive shout would be your next go-to. And then our final level 100 Odin's Fury tree. Again, quite simple, just maxing Odin's Fury and all of its synergies. And then from there, you have some points that are left over after you max all the synergies. Kind of up to you here. I went all battle agility just to get more speed. You could go all into Norse resistance just to give you a ton of all res. This is very useful, obviously, because the res nerf, a lot of people have trouble getting reses in season 6. So this could be a great way to help solve those. If you aren't familiar with sub skill trees, these were added in season 5, right? These little plus signs right here will open up a window that looks like this. This is going to allow us to spec our skills out a little bit more, giving them additional damage, and this is what allows the Odin's Fury to have its life stacking capability as well. Here's what the Odin's Fury tree is going to look like. Right over here on the right side, this is where we have our life stacking at, so we want to make sure we put 5 points into that. From here, you have some different options. I like to put a couple points into armor, or excuse me, arcane break, as this is an arcane skill. This gives us a ton of additional damage towards monsters. There's also AoE right here. You could take these points out and go full AoE. Some people will like this a bit more for farming just because you want as much AoE and clear as you can get. There is also the ability to get some movement speed if you would like to maybe take out the AoE, or you could go just a whole different route completely and get all the movement speed over here. That's up to you. This is what I recommend. And then for charge, on this left side here, this augment makes it so that charge will grab enemies as you are charging. This will allow them to be all piled up. So whenever you Odin's Fury, you just hit them all and all of the loot will drop right there in front of you. That's really nice. This will also make it so you take less damage while you're charging and give you more charge speed. As far as attribute allocation goes, while you're leveling up, you're going to put 2 points intelligence, 2 points vitality, get some points into energy. This will make it feel much more comfy until you get some mana sustain from mana on kill and some mana charms. Once you get into the end game, you are going to dump all of your points into intelligence, just get the most amount of damage. However, there could be a situation where you might just want to let vitality stack, because you can still get damage from vitality even early on. So that could be a viable option just to be a bit more tanky in the early game. If you have enough damage, you don't really have the items yet to push the build into a full Odin's Fury build. You are just kind of relying on the life stacking a bit. You can go that route as well. Now for gearing, this section is just designed to give you some workable suggestions on what gear that you're going to acquire at different stages of the game, right? We have a level 1 to 100 budget gear, mid-game gear, endgame gear. All of this will be available in the guide on the website. So I'm going to skim through some of these things. If you need additional information, or if you want to be able to look at these items to kind of plan out your gearing, all this will be on the website once this build goes live there. Now, I'm not going to be recommending that you stop and go farm any particular satanics. It's a waste of your time. There's no way that I can guarantee that you can get any specific satanic during your run. However, if you drop some that makes sense for your gear, by all means use them. Rune words, however, if you find the bases, the rune words are practically guaranteed. So be sure you're looking out for rune word bases. They will make a big difference in your leveling. Now, here are the main affixes that we're going to be looking for on gear. Anything that is arcane skills, arcane skill damage, arcane flat skill damage, movement speed, cast rate, life and mana on kill for sustain, intelligence. This gives us 1% magic skill damage. Any sort of energy and mana will really help with our sustain. All of these things are the main affixes that you want to look for on your gear to help you level up. And on this guide, in each tab, I have different things that you will want to look for on certain pieces of gear. Like for example, you can get movement speed on a chest. You can get movement speed on shields. A lot of people don't know that. That could help you zoom through zones a little bit faster. Maybe you do a weapon swap and have movement speed on a different set of gear. Really up to you. But there are some different options on affixes, as well as we do have some rune words in here that can make your journey much easier, like grabbing Shadow early, grabbing Angel. So definitely give this a look through to find out exactly what you might run into while you're leveling. Once you hit level 100, there's not really best in slot gear at this point. A lot of these items here could be swapped out with strong mythics. But I'm going to give you some different combinations that you can put together and show you some examples with the gear that I was able to acquire. The first, we have rune words, charms, and a crematorium's pledge. I'm not sure what that says times 2. And a crematorium's, right? You can see we are wearing a divinity. We do have enigma. We do have delirium. We do have ghosts on. We have charms. We do have some relics, right? You can see about where our damage is looking at with that. And same situation, but instead we're using times 2 divinity. This is just to show you how impactful the crematoriums can be, right? You can see that we're actually getting quite a bit more DPS with the crematoriums, even though it's not directly giving us like the fire damage or any of that. It's just that extra damage to burning enemies makes such a big difference when you have a source of burn available. And on this build, we do. That's what that would look like. This is what I recommend you kind of build into. There are some other cheaper options that we'll talk about in the budget section here that you can go, but this is the main ones that I would build into. So if you can't get some of those items, Sky Song, Divinity, Spearwalker's Guide, all of these can be good weapon options. For offhands, any of these offhands will serve you just fine. Rift Eye is insane. Gem Encrusted Tower make you very tanky. You also get a lot of life on it. A second Sky Song does have faster cast rate on it, so more casting is more damage. That actually makes the build feel pretty smooth to play while you're running through zones. Divine Contemplation will give you a ton of resistances. Again, that Crematorium's Pledge is going to be your best offensive option. For helmets, we have Scholar. You should be able to make that during leveling. It's going to be pretty quickly replaced by any of these other options. Crown of the Midnight, Creative Secrets, Witch's Brimmed Hat, Delirium. All really good. I prefer to go Witch's Brimmed Hat, like a +3, just because you get the pen with it, which is really nice. Really up to you. Any of these are fantastic. For chest pieces, if you didn't make an Angel while you were leveling, this is going to be your best DPS option, just because look how many skills you get on this thing. You get up to 4 skills. You get arcane skill damage. You get minus enemy res. You get faster cast rate. You get so much on this thing, and it only costs a Delum and a Hell. Very, very good. If not, you can go with any of these other options here. Gladstone Goose providing the most resistance out of all the options, as well as there is Shroud of Enigma. This is what's going to give you a source of teleport, and only is going to require a Jaw and a Burr rune. Quite easy to farm in Hell 1. You can just run 3/3 and try to get Runic and Brace Shrines to drop these runes, or sell other runes to buy these runes. Whatever you got to do. Jobber will make the build feel way, way better, as you're going to be able to teleport around, and you'll be able to click your Odin's Fury and then teleport into monsters, and it will still be going because of the multiple shouts. You can tele-stomp into crowds of mobs, which is really convenient. Then on top of this, you do get movement speed, you do get life on kill, you get some damage reduction. It's actually a very nice chest. For gloves, any of these will serve you well. I prefer going with Wisdom Holds, as they do give you that faster cast rate. Very important to have good faster cast rate, especially with teleport. You don't want to be teleporting slowly. Being able to traverse around the map quickly is something that I always think about whenever I'm building out my character. Any of these will be fine, but I just like the smoothness of getting that FCR. For boots, quick steps, Grand Wizards, any of these are beautiful. I recommend that you go for either Ghost, which requires a Saw 'em all. It does give you up to 2 skills, so you get some damage reduction as well as phasing. The phasing is actually super nice until you get teleport, because you can just run. You can run through everything. You're not going to get stuck on anything. You just go. You do your thing. Now, you will probably need to go into Ether Walks at some point. These are going to give you a source of mana restoration, especially for bossing. Whenever you're just sitting there like cast. This can give you a way to be able to replenish that mana back. As well as you do get skills on it. You get pen, you get magic skill damage. A very nice pair of boots indeed. For belts, personally, I like to go for the Sash of the Magi, as you do get that faster cast rate. Once again, I like being able to traverse through zones easier, but any of these will be perfectly fine. Commander Sash gives you the most damage reduction, which is super nice. For rings, personally, once again, I am a big FCR fan, so I would probably run the Iron Ring of Prometheus just because I get the FCR. However, Koda's wedding bands now have +2 skills on them. They get to 40% movement speed. So until you get that source of teleport, that 40% movement speed is kind of insane. You also get life, which is damage for us. If you're having trouble capping your resistances, you can go with Satanic Eye. And honestly, Ring of Talus got a buff too. It goes up to 200 life with 5% life. These are super good too. If you can't find any of these, you could obviously go with a Mythic Ring. I also have Elven Grace in here. The crit and crit damage doesn't apply to us, but it's still +2 skills. If you drop a +2 Elven Grace, you're going to use it. Like, it's still a decent ring. Obviously, you could probably sell it and then buy maybe another one, but it still does have +2 on it. For amulets, any of these will be fantastic. Personally, I like going for the Dark Residual. It's going to provide you with the most amount of damage, right? You can see 2 skills. You get a ton of arcane skill damage. You get resistance. This is really nice for whenever you maybe get a moon shard, you get other things that are giving you minus arcane resistance. It's going to help with managing that, right? But honestly, any of these will be perfectly fine. The next one that I would probably go is All Seeing Eyes because it has the Magic Find with it. Early Magic Find is always fantastic. For charms, we want to be looking out for charms that are going to help us cap our resistances, give us a ton of life, make sure we have mana. We can look for magic skill damage on large charms, make a huge deal for the build. FCR can make a big difference for the build, as well as some sustain with life and mana on kill. All of these are important things to be looking for on your mythic charms. And then I do have a bunch of satanic charms that I have listed in here that you can definitely pick up while you are playing through. Buying them on the auction house, you're playing SSF, and you get a Steve or you get a Tall Death Skull. These things are fantastic. You really just round out your character. All right, moving on to the mid game. I do have a whole section talking about how to scale your damage. So if you're not sure how damage really works in Hero Siege, this will give you an idea of how your character can scale its damage. Okay, taking a look at our AoE first, you can see that we have no Inferno, no Angelic items on in this setup here. We do have Gem Kings. We have our Azurath. Azurath's very, very nice. We do have Chaos Gems in pretty much everything. We have our Charms and we have our Relics. We do have Pots. We're pretty geared out at this point, right? I do want to show what that would look like whenever you are geared out a bit. Nothing too crazy here. I would say that the Lilith is probably one of the harder things to get as it is an unholy item. But beyond that, the rest of this is, all of this is farmable in Hell 5. And then if you wanted to get some Inferno items, I do have a girdle on this character. I do have a torch on this character, right? Just a little bit extra, just kind of show you what that difference would be. Just that little bit of extra juice that you get from Stoffel's weapon, which is quite a big upgrade, by the way, and girdle. Same thing here. I have the same gearing setups as we just shown. These are just single targets. You can get an idea of what the single target will be. Once again, single target on Odin's Fury is not the best. Even with high investment, it's not going to be doing 20 billion single target. But it is still viable to complete content with. You just will have to grind a bit more. Now, for weapons, Celestis and Divinity can be made on plus skill bases. Archangel's Phase Blade is a budget Dawnbringer. Stoffel's Cleaver is definitely your best in slot and with the Celestial Shield. And then there is obviously a Dawnbringer. If you do run into one of these, you can use it. It actually is less damage than the Cooking Cleaver, just because that extra damage is so damn good for us. But that is an option you could use if you happen to run into one. For offhand, Celestial's Authority is going to be your best in slot. Getting that pin, it's so damn good. But there are some other options here. If you don't need the pen, you can go Crematorium's Pledge. If we get a bunch of plus skills on here, you can get 7 skills on a Crematorium's Pledge. You could corrupt Gem Encrusted Towers, try to get some rolls on them. Either of these two, Suomi or Ancients Aegis, these can be fantastic. With the Suomi having a bunch of FCR on it, just to be able to teleport around a lot more. You do have the res. Also very good shields. But ultimately, you're going to want that Celestial. This is going to be the best damage option for you, as it does also have Celestial Might. This is going to allow you to convert all elemental damage types into arcane damage. So if you find an item that has fire skill damage on it, or a charm that has fire skill damage, or whatever it may be, you can convert all of that into arcane at a higher percentage, right? It's at a 125% conversion rate instead of it just being a 1-to-1. Justice is also really nice. You can find a plus skills base for Justice. And this can give you a ton of resistances. You get damage reduction, you get magic skill damage, movement speed. Just a very nice all-rounder shield before you can get into something like a Celestials. Or helmet, side of the gods has the most value. It is going to grant you a source of teleport because we're most likely going to be switching our Enigma out. If you're still on the Enigma, there are other options. You can go with Harlequin's Veil. You can go with Delirium Trims. You can go with Curses. Any of these are totally fine. The new helmet, the Dragon Knight's helmet that you get from the Rogue Chaos Tower, this thing is freaking insane, okay? You get up to 40% extra damage on this helmet. Very, very good. And you get 4 sockets, by the way. So if you want to stay on the Enigma, you can try and farm out a Dragon Knight's helmet. This can be farmed in Hell 5, and this thing will be absolutely insane. It'll beat all these other ones out. For chests, if you want to stay on the Enigma, you can. I recommend that you go into the Gem King's Garb. It just provides so much, right? You get skills, you get cooldown recovery, you get flat damage. Do not underestimate flat damage. It's crazy. You get up to 135% arcane skill damage, tons and tons there. However, there's nothing defensive about it. It's just pure damage, right? If you wanted something that was a bit more defensive, you could go Asarius. You could actually play this character as a full life stacker, right? And go Asarius just to be super tanky, have a huge life pool if you're playing hardcore. Totally a viable option. You're just going to have even less damage than what I'm showing here. And then there's also Sheep King's Hide. This can't be farmed in Hell. You will have to be in an Inferno in order to get a Sheep King's Hide, so you have to buy it or get to Inferno. But it is a decent option if you are able to run into it, right? If you're maybe running the helmet, the Side of the Gods, and you haven't gotten a Gem King's Garb yet, but you were able to farm out a King's Hide, by all means, run it. For gloves, Arcanums are generally your best in slot before autos, but there are some other options in case you can't find them. You have Fighter Magi's, you have Shadow Cultists, you have Spellweavers. Any of these would be okay, but Arcanums is really what you want to get into because of that Ominous Aura, and just everything else about these are fantastic for us. Alrighty, for boots, the new Rogue Chaos Tower boots are absolutely OP, cracked, insane. You do want them. Now, I have 2 of them listed here. There's the Scorching Roamers and the Astral Roamers. The Scorching Roamers are going to give you extra damage to burning monsters. This build does burn, and getting up to 50% is kind of insane. You still get the +3 skills. Unfortunately, we can't take advantage of a lot of the other stuff on here. The fire skills isn't going to do anything for us. There are Astral Roamers, right? These will get up to 5 skills, but we currently don't have a way of inflicting shadow burn with the build, so the extra damage isn't going to apply to us here. However, we do get the arcane skill damage, we do get the flat damage, we do get the skills. Everything else on here does ultimately help, but I think Scorching Roamers, that the extra damage is so damn good on builds that this will beat out the extra juice that you're getting from Astrals. But if you get either one, by all means, run them. Other options that you have at this point, you could go into Fumas. These give a ton of arcane skills. You get skill diminished, decreased by up to 50%, which is really nice for moving around. You get some jumping power, movement speed. Pearl Essence will give you some all resistance. You get Holy Aura, which is a damage aura. You also can go Ether Walks. This will really help with your mana sustain. Completely up to you. All of these are great options, but you really want to get into these Rogue Chaos Tower boots. They're fantastic. For belts, we have Rugals. This is very strong. It's going to give you good damage. It's going to give you some tankiness. You get that penetration on it. You get to 30 all res. Very nice. Cunnilingus can roll any class. If you find a Viking Cunnilingus, by all means, go that. There's also Sash of the Eternal Hatred. This is farmed from Uber Damien. And you're going to be running Uber Damiens to try to get souls to go into Gabriel. So if you happen to drop one that has, some arcane skills on it, or pen, or, whatever it may be, 100% viable to run a Sash. And then, of course, if you can get the Girdle of Eternal War from either Inferno or the Auction House, you definitely want to run it, but much harder to get, obviously. For rings, boss rings are in Inferno difficulty, but there are some good options here, right? You can go with a Soulforge ring if you want to grind one of those out. It does have 2 skills. You have the faster cast rate, attributes, life and mana increase. The life obviously is helping you. You get the all resistance. You get increased experience. The Soulforge ring is actually really quite nice. Next, we have Kodo's Wedding Bands. These are going to be up to 2 skills and up to 40% movement speed. You can also slam these, right? This one I happen to get a socket on. Try to do this and get a socket on this. You can throw a Pristine Amethyst in there. That actually does provide quite a lot of damage. Even in the mid game, getting a Pristine Amethyst and stuff is going to be a significant difference. You could also run Absence of Constraint. This does have 2 skills on it, up to 50% magic skill damage. It's going to reduce your mana cost by up to 10%. Actually really nice. This makes it so that you can equip any weapon. Maybe you feel like you want to put on a wand or something. By all means, you can go that route. But the absence of constraint, the main thing is the 2 skills and the magic skill damage. For amulets, any of these will be just fine. Philosopher's Stone is going to be up to 5 skills, and it gives you up to 35% all resistance and some attributes. Thieves Necklace, giving up to 100 all attributes, a ton of damage reduction and resistance. This is what I would probably go. But Philosopher's Stone, having the other skill on there is also very, very, looks super nice. And then False Agony, it's an amulet for an Amun Ra. It's been reworked. It now has int converted into magic skill damage. You get up to 75 intelligence on top of that, and 3 skills, and you get a socket. It's insane. You get so much damn damage out of this False Agony now. So that could be something you could try to pick up on the auction house, or maybe even try to farm for. For charms, a lot of different options here, but basically I've just compiled all of them into one list in no particular order. Here are the old ones from the budget section that if you haven't grabbed yet, some of these can still be nice even in the mid game. But the main things to look for here are in this first section. Now looking at end game, there's a lot of variables here, right? There's a lot of different things that you could run in the end game. This is just based off of my testing. Again, I tried the full life stacking version, and I think I might have actually made a screenshot of it. I didn't, but I did try the full life stacking version, put jaws and everything, went crazy. We had like, oh man, I think we got 60 to 80,000 life, somewhere around in there. And it just didn't perform as good as going the full damage version, like not anywhere close. So we dropped all that down and went this, the actual damage version. That version is still viable, but it's like half the DPS. So if you're willing to sacrifice half of your damage for an insane amount of tankiness, by all means, go for it, especially if you guys in hardcore can make a big difference. Either way, here's what our min-max looks like. You can see that we went into St. Otto gloves, as well as we have the new Inferno version of the Rogue Chaos Tower boots. They're called Chaos Walkers. We have a girdle, we have Gem King's Stoflix weapon, the new Dragon Knight's helmet, Crematorium's Pledge. I use a pendant for teleporting around quicker. We have a pumpkin, we have a fully slotted tablet, we have Sheep King's Annihilus Torch, Fulgi, Lilith for the extra damage, a little bit of life from Anubis. We go for skills there. We have just a basic +2 Chaos Gemstone and a Torsine's Anvil, and you can see that's about what our single target's looking like. And that same gearing, here's what our multi-target would look like. Now you can go into Tyraels, right? Tyraels is going to give you an absolute shitload of life, and we geared it out with all Chaos Gems as well. Exact same gears you're seeing up here. We just literally got Tyraels instead. And here's what our damage difference looks like. It's not that different at all. Right? It's like not different at all in this situation, and you get a ton of life. So if you get into the very end of this build where you have just tons and tons of gear, throwing on the Tyraels might not make your gear double like it does on a lot of builds, but it's going to make you so tanky, right? Because of how much life it does give you. So that's an option. And then we also show the same thing with some different setups, the Crematorium setup versus the Celestial's Authority, and just different setups, right? For relics, here's a list of the relics that we're going to use. Holy Bible, Triforce, Lost Wand, Magic Mushroom, pretty staple relics for most builds. Then we do have some utility options available here. There are some other options you could go like Cake and Mayo Sock, that sort of thing. If you want a bit more life stacking, totally up to you. But here's the ones that I was using in the video. For potions, ton of options here, right? You can get castrate, you can get magic skill damage, you can get pops, you can get XPs, magic find, empty bottle of vodka, very, very good for the additional skills. I personally like caffeinated coffee container. This is super important to the build because we do have that burn. This is going to give us up to 42% increased damage to burning targets. Definitely want to have a coffee container on the build. And then lastly, we have chest augments. Monstrosity is going to be the most damage. Survivor Shield's really good for hardcore. And Spell Slinger is honestly a great way just to get a ton of FCR for teleporting quality of life. This build doesn't get a ton of FCR built into it for free. So this can help you convert some of that magic skill damage into cast rate, right? Otherwise, again, Monstrosity is the most damage. Alrighty, let's talk about Mercenaries. Currently in Season 7, Mercenaries generally only have one purpose. They're just Magic Find Warbots. Mercenaries Magic Find is applied to your on-kill Magic Find. So if you were to take a magic find item and throw it on your mercenary and open up your character screen, you'll see under the magic find section that that number didn't go up. But if you select mercenary and then look at that magic find value, it did go up. That value is applied to kills that you get on your character. Even though it doesn't show in the actual character section, this is just to show you the difference between the magic find that you have on your actual character and the magic find that you have on your mercenary. So you want to be stacking as much magic find as you can possibly get on this mercenary. I cannot stress this enough how important this is. People will come into my stream, they'll message me on Discord, they'll ask in Discord chat, just everywhere. Hey bro, I'm having a hard time finding items. What do you suggest? And I'll ask them, yo, what's your mercenary look like? And they will have either no items, just no mercenary at all. Now in Hero Siege, there are 3 mercs, Act 1, Act 3, and Act 6. We do not use the Act 6 merc most of the time. It just doesn't offer enough utility. You get some arcane break on it and it can randomly give you a shield, which is cool. But it just doesn't offer the same utility of the Act 1 and the Act 3 mercs do. So Act 1 merc can generally get the most magic find as it's a sword and board class. So you have just more socket availability to put more magic find in, as well as they have good supporting items for magic find in those slots. But they're going to have a lower level of fanaticism if you are trying to go for that, if you're aiming to go for fanaticism on your character, if attack speed applies to you. The Act 3 merc can use bows. So this is going to leave us in a situation where we have a little bit less sockets and there's not really a whole lot of bows in the game that provide magic find. And again, we are going to be most likely using the fanaticism bow just to get as much attack speed for our character as we can. The other nice thing about the Act 3 mercenary is you can get a proc from her that'll give you 100% attack speed. This is really, really nice whenever you're maybe fighting a boss. 100% attack speed is no joke. And if you're a caster character, just go the Act 1 merc. Here's a list of some different weapons for your mercenary. These are all just going to depend on whether you're taking the Act 1 or the Act 3 mercenary. Again, Act 3 mercenary cannot wear maces. It's a bow character, so the Sacred Whip, the Ceremonial Dagger, and the Death Smear, you'll have to use those on the Act 1 mercenary. But you can use the Valkyrie. That's a really nice bow with fanaticism on it. Otherwise, just honestly throw any bow that you can because the mercenary doesn't do damage anyway. And then for the Act 1 merc, we also have Aurora's Might. This can give us Lunar Aura. This is a ton of resistances. Very nice to have early on to tap those resistances. Otherwise, just pick any of these options. Death Smear is probably going to be the most expensive. Throw as many Istrunes in there as you can. This will give you a ton of early magic find. Same thing for chests. These are just different levels of magic find. So Uppies, Mystic Lure, Heaven's Might, Empires, Military Plate. All these have magic find on them. Heaven's Might technically doesn't, but it does have 6 sockets. You could throw 6 discs in here if you wanted to. As well as you can see that you get a ton of physical damage and magical damage reduction on the Heaven's Might. Very, very nice chest. And then I did list out a couple of tankier chests like Leviathan's Carcass and Azarius's. These offer a ton of damage reduction. You can see Leviathan's 1,000 life and 23% life increase. 6 sockets, you could throw a bunch of Isrune in there. Same thing for Azarius, you get damage reduction, you get the all res. The very tanky chest pieces that you could throw on your mercenary to try to get him to survive some of those hits in Inferno and even some of the Ubers in Hell 5. Same thing applies to helmets. Here's some different levels of magic find helmets. You also get physical and magical damage reduction and up to 30% all res on a Harley Quinn. Very nice helmet for your mercenary. And lastly, the offhands. Once again, just different levels of magic find. Leprechaun's Greet is an SS tier. It's going to be the most expensive, the most rare. However, you can't find a novice tower. This thing's insane for just being an S tier. You have a increased magic find roll. You have an increased magic find based on level. You also have up to 4 sockets to put Is in it. That is a ton of magic find for an S tier. Again, socket any of these with a bunch of Is runes. Is are honestly quite common, so it's not going to hurt you to pick up some of these items early and then swap into different ones later on. Because our goal is to get magic find on our mercenary as quick as we can. After hitting level 100, hero levels in Hero Siege can offer some significant power boosts, but which nodes do you take first? Knowing which nodes to prioritize can make a big difference. There are several effective strategies for optimizing your hero level tree, depending on your character's current progression and gear. This section includes a detailed written guide outlining popular approaches used by the community. If you prefer a visual walkthrough, I do have a YouTube video available with full timestamps. And just to give you a quick scroll through of kind of what that written guide looks like, we go through all the different setups that are available, whether you're an attacker or a caster, and what that would look like if you tried to prioritize certain things and why you might prioritize certain nodes over others. After level 100, glyphs can be socketed into your hero level tree and offer additional utility to enhance your gameplay. Currently, glyphs do not provide direct player power, making their selection entirely preference-based, depending on the content that you wish to engage with. I do have a full YouTube video that describes how glyphs work, so you can get a bit more information if you're not sure what glyphs look like, how to level them up. If you scroll down on this guide, you will find additional information. This will show you every glyph at their level 0, 6, and 8 value, as well as it'll tell you how much it increases by per allocated attribute in its range, its current attribute type, and a description. Alrighty, let's talk loot filters and more specifically league start filters. Now, I'm gonna be pretty blunt about this because I want to make sure that I get my point across so that it's clear. I cannot make loot filters before Season 7's patch actually hits the game. I can't do it in Season 7 beta. I can't do it in the Season 6 client. There is no way that myself or anybody can get you a filter before the season starts for the most part. Now, I did make a video in Season 6 that talks about the loot filter, highlight filters for any class in the game for starters. There is technically a way to set it up before the season starts because the patch actually hits about an hour before the game goes live. So if there's single player, you can jump into single player on the new season and you can quickly make a filter and put those on a notepad, whatever you need to do, and then just import them whenever the season actually starts. So I do have a full video explaining how all of that works and what you will need to do. So if you're not sure how that works, be sure you check out that video. And then of course I do have the full written guide that explains every single archetype and what I put on each of those archetypes so that you can kind of practice. You can jump into Season 6, pretend that it's, league start day, make your filter really fast. You can get familiar with where everything is at. And it's honestly quite easy. Now, if you're a newer player, you're just not really sure how the loot filters work. Loot filters in Hero Siege are not Path of Exile filters, right? They're not going to hide 95% of the items on the ground. You're not going to start seeing that until you get later into the game. So you are going to still see quite a bit of items when you first start the game, and it's going to feel like the loot filter is not working, but it is. As well as the highlight filter is the main part of the loot filter. The highlight part is actually highlighting affixes on items that you care about. Right, so whenever you're playing through the game, you'll see this giant beam, and I don't know what color it is. I think it's orange, but it'll be like an orange beam and an orange highlighted item. You'll be like, oh, that's highlighted. I should probably pick that up. Yes, it's because your highlight filter is highlighting that item. So the highlight filter is very, very important. The loot side of it, not as big of a deal. If you don't want to do all of that for your starter filter, there are in-game presets that you can use for both the filter and the highlight section. So you're simply just going to click Escape, Options, Gameplay, and the loot filter. This is going to make your screen look like this right here. On the right side, you can see all the highlight presets and the different archetypes. Like if you're playing a physical attacker, or you're playing a cold caster, or an arcane caster, or a life stacker, or any of that stuff, all of that will be in here. You can just click on it and go, right? Same thing for the loot side of it on the left. If you're in normal difficulty at the very start of the season, you'll be in normal. You just click normal. Once you hit Nightmare, you'll click Nightmare. Once you hit Hell, you'll click Early Hell, right? And you just kind of level with both of these together. And then as you play, you're welcome to click on these and go in and, add some different stuff into them if you would like to. And then of course you have in-game filters. I don't have a way to give you an in-game filter until the season actually starts. So once we get the season going, I've played for a couple of days. At that time, I will be able to provide some in-game filters. And our last section is additional resources. This section really walks you through the best strategies for each phase of your journey. If you're a newer player to Hero Siege, be sure that you read through these first few sections just to gain a better understanding of Hero Siege mechanics and how things work. And also check this section a couple of times before season starts, as I do plan to add some things to it. First up is our beginner guide. If you're newer to Hero Siege, I have a 2.5-hour video that goes through all of the basics from making a character and installing the game to how Ubers work. Be sure you check that video out. There are a few things that you need to know before you get started, like equipping your companion. Everyone gets one of these for free. Be sure you set up your highlight filter. In the video, I do have a full section on the highlight filter. Configure any controls. Here's currently my settings if you would like to copy what mine looks like. I also suggest that you change your minimap hotkey to tab. This will make your minimap overlay permanent like D2 or Path of Exile, instead of it being something that you have to constantly press. Swap your game to 60 FPS. Even if you have an insane PC, trust me, you're not going to see a difference in your frames, but your performance will be much better. And in order to assign skills, you actually click on the right-click skill, and that will open up a menu to assign your skills. Now, there are no required quests in Hero Siege. I do, however, recommend that you complete your Act 1 normal quests. Those are going to give you a mid rune, a ton of the lower runes, a movement speed charm, and a movement speed potion. These are all really nice to have while you're leveling up, especially for being just Act 1 normal. The same thing will happen in Act 1 Nightmare. You'll get up to a Vex rune, as well as a bunch of low runes. And then once you get into Act 1 Hell, you'll get a few mid runes. Same thing for Act 2 Hell, and Act 3 Hell is when you will actually get your first high rune. So those are the quests that I recommend that you complete. In Hero Siege, there's additive damage and skill damage. Additive damage is weapon damage. It is damage that you're gaining when your weapon physically hits an enemy or strikes an enemy. This can be from a ranged weapon, a wand, a sword. It doesn't matter. It's your weapon physically striking a monster is additive damage. It is not multiplicative damage. Skill damage, however, is multiplicative damage. It is giving your skill base damage. So to give you an example of this, there's a skill in Hero Siege called Lightning Fury. It's quite common in a lot of ARPGs. You basically take your big hammer, you strike a mob with it, and a bunch of lightning goes out everywhere and chains to a bunch of monsters. If you had both additive lightning damage and lightning skill damage, the additive lightning damage would be affected when your weapon struck the monster, right? And then the skill damage would be affecting the lightning's damage. So there's two different instances of damage that's happening on that strike. Generally speaking, additive damage is great early game, absolutely terrible in the end game because there's no way to scale it. And skill damage is a little less effective early, but becomes very, very potent as you level through the game and as you get into the end game. If you haven't checked out the Season 7 patch notes, that is available in here. There is an official Hero Siege wiki that's launched recently. This has a ton of information. There's a link to that. Now, once you hit level 100, I do have a section here talking about the early game, giving you progression tips and tricks, because a lot of people are expecting, some mapping system or monolith system, or they're expecting to go somewhere and do repeatable content. And Hero Siege doesn't directly work that way. It has a bit of a different system. So this talks about that system a bit in video form, or I do have the full written guide available here. You can read through all of it to get an idea of what we should be doing in order to progress that early game. Be sure you bookmark the Hero Siege helper website. This has an absolute ton of information in it that's very accessible. I use it all the time. If I need to know, I don't know, like what key goes to what dungeon, I'll just pop this up really quickly and it helps you find that. Here is a YouTube video that talks about this entire website and everything that it offers. He has updated it, I think, a couple of times since the last time I reviewed it. There might be a couple of things here and there that are extra, but very, very good website. Be sure you bookmark it. And that wraps up this build guide. I hope it helps you get the most out of your Hero Siege experience this season. Whether you're pushing through the early levels or tackling the end game, this setup should give you a solid foundation to build from. If you found this guide helpful, please consider leaving a like and sharing it with others in the community. Drop any questions, feedback, or build suggestions in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys and helping where I can. I'll also be streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. You can come check me out there, ask me any questions. Would love to see you. Don't forget to check the description for the full written guide and any additional resources mentioned in the video. And if you'd like to support the channel, even a small donation goes a long way in helping me continue creating quality Hero Siege content. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any future guides, updates, or seasonal news. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy sieging.